Obsidian's Avowed is, quote, similar in length to The Outer Worlds. Players can expect a roughly similar experience, says the game director. What's you guys' feeling on Avowed? What's your impression? Because I'm trying to get excited for it, but really I just feel the same way I felt. I mean, again, kind of about the Outer Worlds. I just feel like there's something about it that just is a little off. Not to say it'll be bad, but I just don't think it's coming together in the way I was hoping. You know, I keep waiting for that one hook that's going to be like, oh, this is why it's like a must play, but I just haven't really seen that yet. I get the feeling, yeah, kind of like you're saying, Papa, I get the feeling that this is probably one of those like 7, 8 out of 10 games. It's good, not great, not bad, just good. Something you probably play over the course of a weekend or something. Might have fun with it. But I think people got their hopes up with the original announcement trailer and some of the other statements that were made early on in the development of the game, where they were hopeful that this would be like Obsidian's Elden Ring. Because I remember, or not Elden Ring, Elder Scrolls. Because you guys remember when that first trailer dropped, people were like, so Outer Worlds was like their first foray into trying to make their own sort of Fallout. What if this is their attempt at making their own like Skyrim? People got really excited. Turns out it's almost certainly not going to be on that scale. The game director is suggesting it's much closer to Outer Worlds, which, if you don't recall, was about 13 hours for the main story and 26 with all side content. And that's what the game director said, Carrie Patel. She said the best comparison for Avowed in terms of scope is Outer Worlds. Players can expect a roughly similar experience, just like Outer Worlds, depending on what kind of difficulty they play on and how they explore and invest in side content versus just sticking to the main crit path missions. Yeah, this is, despite the game taking place within the same universe, Patel told Game Informer that players don't have to have played those games, specifically the other Pillars of Eternity games, to get started in this RPG. Quote, we're glad to have our returning fans, but we expect that for many players, Avowed is going to be their first introduction into the world of Eora, and we're accounting for that. So Avowed takes place a few years after the end of Dreadfire, which was our game just before this. There are a couple of characters that are returning, that returning players are going to recognize, which they alluded to in some of those gameplay previews and things. But as you can see, I mean, in terms of scope, 13 and a half hours, 26 and a half. Completion is 40 hours if you're doing absolutely everything. I think Outer Worlds landed, you know, it wasn't bad or like poorly received. It seems like the people who have played it have generally liked it, but it was clunky. It was not perfect, but it was good. You know, little clunky in spots. Scope was much more limited than I think people were expecting, but it was a fun foray. And if you have like Game Pass, I recommend you check it out. Yeah, Nikki Jakey said it's okay. There are 7 out of 10 games. Well, it seems like after last year, especially where we had so many 10 out of 10s and 9 out of 10s, people kind of got accustomed to that. And so now they are really frustrated that there are not more like masterpiece grade games releasing this year. And it's like, that was very exceptional for years and years. 7 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s were like the most common games, and they'd come out and you'd have things that you'd change or things that were not great about them, but you could still have fun with it. It feels like now, if ever a game releases and it's not a 9 out of 10 or higher, people are like, wow, they really fell off. You know, like even to a certain extent, like a Starfield, like that has a pretty, I think currently a fairly negative sentiment in the mass media and broader gaming community. It's still reviewed pretty good, like 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's not a masterpiece, but that's a review score that no one can shake a stick at. That's not bad. 6.8 user score. User scores don't really tell you much of anything nowadays with all the mass downvote campaigns and stuff that happen, so you never really know what you're looking at. But 83, not bad. Not bad at all. But nowadays, it just feels like if a game is not 10 out of 10, it's garbage. You know, it's like, wow, trash. It's like I've had plenty of meals. There's a restaurant near us, a Mexican restaurant. I like going there because I crave carne asada. Every once in a while, I just get that craving and I need it. I need a fix. And so I'll go and I'll order the carne asada and it'll show up and it won't ever be great. It's always okay. But it fits the hunger I have. It scratches that itch. So even though it isn't the best carne asada I've ever had, it does what it needs to do to satisfy my hunger for carne asada. And I think something like this is perhaps going to be similar to that carne asada from that restaurant, where it's probably not the best cut of meat. It probably isn't cooked correctly. The serving sizes are wildly inconsistent from visit to visit. Maybe the water that they serve you even smells vaguely of bleach. But you eat it and you're still like, that was a good meal. That was a good meal. I'm okay with that. You know? And with this, I imagine there's going to be lots of weird little quirks with it, but I think it will serve the purpose. And if you're looking for a little RPG fix that's like 15 hours long, you can get it here. And honestly, it might be refreshing to have an RPG that's not like 50, 60, 70 hours long. Oh, well, Luke took his chance to throw the restaurant frequency. I mean, I still go to the restaurant. I still buy stuff at that restaurant pretty frequently because there's also not many restaurants near me. But yeah, it's like not amazing at all. And like sometimes it's straight bad. Other times it's good. Most of the time it's okay. But it does its job, you know? And there's a lot of restaurants like that. Like we one time went to visit some family in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, in like the middle of nowhere, one of the things they do is after like church on Sundays, they all hop in the car and they go to a restaurant. And no doubt, like I'm not joking, the restaurant is like straight out of Seinfeld. It's just called Restaurant, and it is attached to a gas station. And to me, it seems weird to go and like go to a restaurant that's built into the same place I refill my car. That's just weird to me. But we go there, you order the food, and it's just cafeteria grade food or like bowling alley food. But everybody goes and has a good time. Your stomach might hurt a little bit after the meal, but hey, it's okay. And you can still have a good time there. Like if I'm a critic and I'm evaluating it, yeah, it's going to get a bad score, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a place for a restaurant called Restaurant, you know? I just think like with so much of this stuff, I've tried to explain it to people sometimes with like even Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 is a like super, super short game. And honestly, I don't think it does much of anything except graphics better than the first game. But I still think there's a place for it. Like if you're looking for something that you can finish in an afternoon and you just want some like really cool cinematic, beautiful thing to sink your teeth into for an afternoon, you can go through it and probably walk away like, okay, that was cool. Especially if you're getting it through Game Pass and not paying 40, 50 bucks for it. Like there is a place for it. If I'm putting a review score on it, it's probably not going to score that high, but there's still a place for it in the industry. My concern recently with the industry is that it feels like there is not really a way for games to be viable unless they are masterpiece levels. Like hearing this, I would imagine Outer World or Obsidian, little Freudian slip there. I would assume that Obsidian's Avowed is going to land at like that 7, 8 out of 10 range. And I hope it's still like worth making and it's still profitable and they can still be like, okay, no layoffs, we're good. We can move on to the next project. But unfortunately nowadays it just feels like everything is either a masterpiece or it's a flop. Maybe this is just, perception is tricking me, but it feels like if you're not a masterpiece, then that's where you land. But then again, the other thing that complicates this is it's a Game Pass title. Game Pass titles, it's more about engagement, hours or even minutes played. It's much less about copies sold. So this could be a game that like at that 7 or 8 out of 10 mark actually does remarkably well on a Game Pass because people are not going and buying it. They're rather going through Game Pass to download it and play it so they don't have to risk spending the money and wasting it up front. So this could actually be like the perfect game for Game Pass. There's a weird world where like Game Pass is actually most profitable on like controversial games that people just play to see if it's that bad, and games that are good but not so good that you want to buy them full price on Steam, but rather you want to sign up for Game Pass to try them, and then you forget to cancel your subscription, and all of a sudden a year has passed and you've been signed up for too long. It's a whole thing. Like there's a weird alternative universe, maybe not even alternative, but there's a way where I could totally see Game Pass being more successful with less masterpieces and more okay games. Like if we're looking just at Game Pass, Xbox probably, would prefer if you also just bought it, but they also want those Xbox Game Pass signups. Yeah, they're working on Outer Worlds 2 at the same time. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if Phil has not like grabbed them by the throats and be like, you're making a Fallout game, I don't know what he's doing. That's such a layup. Even if the game, like realistically, the game probably doesn't end up being a 10 out of 10 or anything, even if Obsidian makes a Fallout game. But that just makes so much sense in terms of fan service. You better believe if they announced it, like not E3, at their showcase next year, if they announced that they've got another Fallout game coming from Obsidian, people would lose their minds. Like that instantly wins the show. Maybe not, because Naughty Dog will be there and Santa Monica is probably going to be there. And so there's going to be some fierce competition next year, but that will at least be a big get if they get that. Are they AAA? They fit more in the AA space. And that's usually reflected in the pricing too. Like they're $40, $50 games. When you're in the $70 range, it better be AAA. Xbox is back. Well, Xbox has good games, games that look good, but we have to see how they launch, because a lot of other games that they've shown in years past looked good, but then we know how they ended up, Should they be rated differently as AA? No, I think like in the review, there should be a distinction. Hey, this is a cheaper game. This is smaller in scope. It's always stupid when people like look at a AA game or an indie game and they're like, well, this game, doesn't hold a candle to Red Dead. And it's like, yeah, it's not trying to. It was never going to. So, it's tricky. He took my thing.